Testing 1 2 1 2. Test 1 2 3. Test 1 2. Varying degrees of, getting over or still sick. It's never ending. you were right to have the mask on. Honestly.
Well, you know I've been wearing.
No, I know. You've been right all along.
Yeah, my mom's 95, and I'm not going to be the reason.
That's why, like in general, I feel okay, but I also not everybody's okay.
Well, like when I did some shopping today, and I went and I took my mask off, and I said, "Ooh, it's like unprotected sex." That's how I look at it. It's like I'm like, oh no, I don't want to get sick. She wasn't talking too close to me.
It's like where I read this article that said that what happened to us happened to lots of people, which is that either people are getting one on top of the other at the same time, or they're getting one and then immediately get the next. So, like, we had flu and RSV. And at least at the moment, thank God we don't have COVID. But, it's like every time we send Eva to school, it's just a roll of the dice.
Like germs, the incubators for germs.
Oh, my God. At that age in particular, look, Emmett's not much better, but he's not around as many kids. Like, he goes to see me, and there's like 4 other kids in his class, but he's at the children's museum every day.
Just need one kid.
Yeah, and they're all like, his hands are on the floor. Yep.
And touching the same toys.
And touching the same toys, Yeah, is it cold in here? I can.
It's a little.
Let me go check and see what the temperature is. I have like some control, but not what I would describe as the old thermostat where I could just go like this a couple of times. And it worked. No, we have like a crazy level system downstairs. It's really.
Well, Richard put it in, right?
Well, actually, it was a funny story. Eventually, Richard got involved, but he originally didn't want anything to do with it. No. It mostly, it's not a story he wouldn't mind telling, because his main concern was that when you're an expert in something, then everybody looks at you as the expert. And if something goes wrong, and all of a sudden he's the one getting a phone call, 12 o'clock at night. And sure enough, that's the way it used to be. I remember distinctly one Shabbat during the summer when our AC unit went out. And so I'm like frantically calling him, trying to figure out what a compressor is, let alone how to fix anything, And sure enough, we do. We should actually, as a matter of fact, we should have a big sign outside that just turns on a neon. We need a minion. How are you doing? Well, look, no, that is a.
One summer with the previous synagogue, they would go to.
Oh yeah.
Say, are you Jewish?
Oh yeah. No, that's one of. I'll tell that story another time. But it's one of Neil's more favorite stories. About his reaction to that. I am a firm believer that you sit wherever you want to sit. The Geffen family sits in the last row almost everywhere we go, no matter what. So. No, I'll tell you what was one of the kindest things that anyone's ever said to me, especially when it comes from a rabbi. So Rabbi Becky Joseph, Ruth Joseph's daughter, who when she's in town, she graciously teaches here once in a while, and we got a chance to catch up afterward. And she told me that, one of the things that she really appreciates about being here and about our service is that it doesn't feel different whether there's 100 people in the room or there's 10 people in the room, right? And that really struck me, because to me that's always been my mentality, but you never know if that's the way that it feels on the other end of things. But and I explained that during my early days of COVID, where I was in here alone, and I had to figure out like how does somebody do this? And then I thought about all these actors, right? Actresses who practice, soliloquies at home to a wall, and somehow or another they can deliver, the greatest oratory of all time with nobody in there. And I realized if they can do it, I can do a poor job of it.
Right.
And, and that's.
You never did a webinar right before.
Oh God, yeah, no. I think these days at HUC they must teach them all sorts of stuff. But boy, that was a whole thing. So, Linda, I know I offered to you at the beginning when nobody was here, but since you've done it in the last few weeks, does anybody feel like candlelighting tonight would help us out? No pressure? All right. Okay, and you'll be tonight, Bonnie. We'll get you next time, which would be great. But we got a few. You relax. I think we still got a few minutes. I feel like I haven't. No. Yeah, 1 minute. Good. This is why punctuality is very important. You're all gonna have to eat extra gefilte fish. So, were you guys in Mexico? Did you come back? No.
We were here a little bit, and then we were back in the city, moving in the city. So
Oh, I understand. Oh, yeah, that is not a fun experience. That's not a fun experience anywhere, but in the city is infinitely more. Of course. Well, you know what? Yes. Yeah.
We never had the luxury of having somebody move us. We've always moved ourselves.
That had always been the case, but honestly, when we moved from Liberty Street to North Haven, I was like, no, we're not, and I still, there was a whole bunch of stuff at the end. I was like, you know what, we'll just take it over. Like, no big deal. We got an SUV, no big deal. It was like 8 trips back and forth, and frantically trying to get it all done. You learn your lessons, and then you make the same mistakes, and then you learn your lessons again, and that is life.
I never want to move. I'm never moving. Right. My next move is never my next
move. Oh God, no.
Oh, I already told you about my next move.
Yeah, well, he is a knowledgeable guy in that regard, But yes. Look, it's the kind of salesman that you don't want to be, but at the same time, I'm so grateful that it's him, Yeah. 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 Another time when the mic's not on, I've got some good stories for that, but that's, we'll see. Oh, yeah. No, it is that, and humor a lot of times is a mechanism for dealing with the scary things of life, for sure. Yeah, we'll hold that thought for another time, but maybe at One, we'll see. But I am not like I'd say 100%, but at least I feel myself. And I was actually concerned whether like getting that tooth out was going to change my voice or how I sing. So far, I haven't noticed it, but if you notice anything, I am really curious. But it is a bizarre thing, right? You're sort of looking for this vestigial thing that's no longer there, and it's. I haven't made a decision whether I'm going to or not because it's a back. No. But the molar, I'm not. I don't know. This is all the stuff that people turn in for Shabbat, by the way, is to hear about the rabbi's molars. I'm sure. But I will say this, there's a prayer that you say in the mornings, one of the early prayers in the service, which is a blessing for our bodies, and of course the English translation of it and the more, how should I say, poetic readings of it, explore what I think most of us understand of gratitude for the body, but the Hebrew itself is actually fairly specific, and it refers to the openings and closings, and if they're not working, then nothing else can happen. And you sort of think about that from time to time. And I got to that prayer last week, and I'm thinking, boy, this hits you in a different kind of way when something isn't quite right. And I realized, as it was 2 weeks ago, I guess it was 3 weeks ago, I literally could not do what I'm doing right now. 2 weeks ago, I probably shouldn't have done it, and I made my way through it. And then last week with, being sick, it was like, okay, this is clearly if somebody's sending me a message, right? Be grateful when you have the moments where it works and all of that. But beyond that, that's it. Shabbat shalom, guys. Come on in. Shabbat shalom. All right. Please make yourselves at home. If you need any help with anything, just let us know. So we're going to get started with our service by lighting our candles for Shabbat. And as we continue to do, sadly, on Sunday will be, I believe it's Sunday, it's 100 days the hostage is still in captivity, and while it may be a small symbolic gesture to set a second set of. A lot of people were talking about 100, but I'm pretty sure it's Sunday. I don't think it's today. I think today is 98. Yeah, no, that's a whole nother conversation for sure. Yeah, I could be wrong. I mean, I'll whether it's today or it's Sunday, right? The acknowledgement of that just unfathomable passage of time, And as I said, it's a small gesture, but I think that's one of the things that occurs to me more and more is that there is no small gesture, right? It's about reminding ourselves and reminding each other, and to what extent is possible, reminding the world, right, that these are real people who are really suffering. And who, that big television out there, it says it plainly, right, who need to come home. So we pray, and we hope, And we light these candles with that hope that someday soon, those that can still return will have the opportunity to light their candles on their own. And until then, we'll continue to do it. So, Anne, if you would do us the honor, if that thingy gives you any trouble, you just, yeah, let me know. And I think,
I should probably light these first. So you usually light them, you trust in me?
I think you're doing a fabulous job.
So when
Yeah,
I'm home, I do it. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher tishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu l'habitneh shel Shabbat.
Amen. Thank you, Anne. So we'll now turn in our prayer books, and if you're just joining us or you have any trouble, our Siddur looks just like this, should be right in front of you. And we're on page 130 as we begin Kabbalat Shabbat together at the very top of the page. Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena, l'Adonai. Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena, l'Adonai. Naria, naria, letzor yishenu, nekadma fanav betoda. Naria, naria, letzor yishenu, bizmirot naria lo. Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena, l'Adonai. Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena, l'Adonai. We're now on the top of page 131, Shiru l'Adonai, the 96th Psalm. Shiru l'Adonai, shiru shir chadash, shiru l'Adonai, kol haaretz. Shiru l'Adonai baruchu shemo, basru meyom leyom yeshuato. Shiru l'Adonai baruchu shemo, basru meyom leyom yeshuato. Shiru l'Adonai, shiru shir chadash, shiru l'Adonai, kol haaretz. Shiru l'Adonai baruchu shemo, basru meyom leyom yeshuato. Shiru l'Adonai baruchu shemo, basru meyom leyom yeshuato. We'll turn now to page 132 at the very bottom, or Zarua. Or Zarua lahatzadik, ulehishrei lev simcha. Or Zarua lahatzadik, ulehishrei lev simcha. Simechu tzadikim b'Adonai, vehodu lezecher kodsho. Simechu tzadikim b'Adonai, vehodu lezecher kodsho. We're now on page 134, at the very top of the page. Zamru l'Adonai bechinor, bechinor bekol zimra, b'chatzotrot bekol shofar. Ahariu lifnei hamelech Adonai, Yiram hayam umlo'o, Tevel ve'yoshvei ba. נהרות ימחאו כף יחד, הרים ירננו. לפני אדוני קיווה, לשפוט הארץ. ישפוט תבל בצדק, והמים במישרים. ירם הים ומלואו, תבל ביושבי בה. נהרות ימחאו כף יחד, הרים ירננו. We'll turn now to the next page, 135, Romamu, which is the last Hebrew paragraph just in the middle of the page. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu lehar kodsho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu lehar kodsho. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu lehar kodsho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu lehar kodsho. We'll turn now to page 138, L'chadodi, which begins at the very top of the page. We'll do the first, second, fifth, and ninth paragraphs. And for the final paragraph, for those that are in the room with us, we'll rise and face towards the doors that we walked in through. Lecha dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela. 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 Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, ishmi'anu el hamiuchad. Adonai echad u'shemo echad, לשם ולתפארת ולתהילה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה, כי היא מקור הברכה. נראש מקדם נסוכה, סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. Fifth paragraph. התעוררי, התעוררי, כי באורך קומי אורי, 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 שיר דברי, כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה.
Boi v'shalom ateret mala, gam besimcha uvetzolha, toch emunei am segula, boi chala, lecha dodi likrat kala, Penei Shabbat nekabela, lecha dodi likrat kala, Penei Shabbat nekabela. Please be seated. We'll turn now to page 140, Tzadik Katamar, which is the Hebrew just in the middle of the page where there is an indent. Tzadik katamar yifrach, kerez balbanon yiske chetulim bevet Adonai. Bechatzrot Eloheinu yafrichu Hod yenuvun beseva Deshenim verananim yihu Lehagin ki ashar Adonai Tzuri velo ablatabo. Will now rise in body or in spirit for the Chatzi Kaddish on page 144 and remain standing for the Baruch Hu on the next page. Yitkadal veyitkadash shemei Rabbah Balma divrach yirtei v'yamlich malchutei v'chai uvyomechon uvchayei dechol beit Yisrael Ba'agala Ubizman kariv veimeru Amen. Yeheshmei Rabbah mevarach La'alam li'al me'al maya Yitbarach ve'yishtabach V'yitbar v'yitramam ve'yitnaseh Ve'yitadar ve'yitale v'yitalal Shemei dekudsha brichu Leila min kol birchata ve'shirata Tushbechata ve'nechemata Damihiran behalma Veimeru Amen. Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamevorach. Baruch Adonai Hamevorach Leolam Vahem. Please be seated. We're now on page 148. We'll begin reading together in English at the very bottom of the page. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who speaks the evening into being, skillfully opens the gates, thoughtfully alters the time and changes the seasons, and arranges the stars in their heavenly courses according to plan. You are creator of day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness from light, transforming day into night and distinguishing one from the other. Adonai Tzvaot is your name. Ever-living God, may you reign continually over us into eternity. Blessed are you, Adonai, who brings on evening. U'mahavir yom u'mevi laila, u'mavdihil ben yom u'ven laila, Adonai Tzvaot shemo. El chai v'kayam tamid yimloch aleinu leolam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Amariv Aravim. We'll turn now to page 150 and we'll read together in English at the bottom of the page. Everlasting love you offered your people Israel by teaching us Torah and mitzvot, laws and precepts. Therefore, Adonai our God, when we lie down and when we rise up, we will meditate on your laws and your commandments. We will rejoice in your Torah forever. Day and night we will reflect on them, for they are our life, and doing them lengthens our days. Never remove your love from us. Praise to you, Adonai, who loves your people Israel. Ki ehem chayinu ve'orech yaminu, uvahem nege yomam v'lahayla, v'avatcha al tasir mimenu li'olamim, baruch atah Adonai, ohev amo Yisrael. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Please join me on page 154. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha, bechol levavcha v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol meodecha, ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi metzavcha hayom al levavecha, ve'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam, ve'shiftecha b'veitecha u'v'lechtecha b'derech u'shochbecha u'vkumecha, u'kshartam leot al yadecha, ve'hayu letotafot bein einecha, u'chtavtam al mezuzot beitecha, u'visharecha, lemad tizkeru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai, v'item kedoshim Elohechem, ani Adonai Elohechem, asher hotzeiti etchem mi'eretz Mitzrayim, liyot lachem Elohim, ani Adonai Elohechem, Adonai Elohechem emet. Let's read together now on the top of page 157 in English. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands and marching together. As we turn to page 158, Michamocha at the very top of the page. Yabai bye bim 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 bam, yabai bye bim bam, yabai bye bim 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 bam, yabai bye bim bam, yai bye ba 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 bye, yabai bye bim bam, yai bye ba 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 bye, yabai bye bim bam, mihi chamocha bailim Adonai, mihi kamocha nedar b'hakodesh, nor atehilot osefele, nor atehilot osefele, yabai bye bim 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 bam, yabai bye bim bam, yabai bye bim 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 bam, yabai bye bim bam, yai bye ba 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 bye, yabai bye bim bam, yai bye ba 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 bye, yabai bye bim bam. Malechutecha ra'u vanecha, bokeyam lifnei Moshe u'Miriam, zeli anu ve'amru, Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed, v'nemar kifad Adonai et Yaakov, ugolo miad chazak mimenu, baruch atah Adonai, Gal Israel. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up, waiting to do your will. Hashkivenu is on the top of page 160. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom, v'hamidenu Shomreinu lechaim, Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu leshalom, V'hamidenu, Shomreinu lechaim. Ushmor tzeteinu, uvoeinu, lechaim ushalom, me'ata ve'ad olam. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu leshalom, v'hamidenu, Shomreinu lechaim. Blessed are you, Adonai, guardian of Israel, whose shelter of peace is spread over us, over all your people Israel, and over Yerushalayim. We'll turn now to page 162, V'shamru, at the very top of the page. V'shamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asot et ha-Shabbat, ledorotam berit olam, ein beini uvein bnei Yisrael oti le'olam. Ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai et hashamayim et haaretz uvayom hashvi'i Shabbat vayinafash. Invite us now to rise in body or in spirit as we begin the Amidah together on page 164. From that point on, we'll continue silently. As always, please go at your own pace, and if at the end you are still standing, you may be seated. Adonai sefatai tiftachu fi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Oseh shalom bimromav. Uyaseh shalom aleinu. Ve'al kol Yisrael. Ve'al kol Yoshvei Tevel. Yaseh shalom. Yaseh shalom. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. We'll turn now to page 371 as we offer our Mishaberach, our healing prayer for this evening. We'll begin by thinking of those in our community who we know are in need of that healing. Barbara Goldfarb, Abigail Blum, Benzie Tepper, Allison Luckman, Michael Klinghoffer, Ame and Warren Cass, Rivka Bat Rachel, Leah Bat Naomi, Lorraine Danis, David Dowling, Sylvia Devora Bat Francis, Muriel Hirsch, Michelle Sawicki, Francis Kirschman, Shelley Newmark, Diane Axelrod, Gabriella Spicer, Barbara Kushner, David Kyle Klopman, Lorraine Davis, Richard Gambino, Kim Birnbaum, Deborah Block-Kroll, Sylvia Orn, Rachel Bat Ora, and Josephine Getling. In addition to those names that I just read, we'll give an opportunity for those who are in the room with us tonight. If you have additional names to share, we'll start on this side of the room and work towards the back, and then this side of the room. And if you have names to share, please just raise a hand so I don't accidentally skip over anyone. Of course, we invite those watching at home to add names as well. We'll join together now in the Mishaberach in the middle of page 371. Mishaberach avotenu mekor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mishaberach imotenu mekor habracha avotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. And now we'll offer our prayer for Israel in time of war, written by Professor Ruben Kimmelman. This, of course, having additional power, I think, tonight for all of us as we're thinking again of 100 days and that period of time and what that means. It's inconceivable. It's simply inconceivable. And this prayer, which there's one of many that have been written, to me it stuck out because whether you hear it or not, it contains within it verses from Tanakh, verses from Psalms, from Isaiah. Ultimately speaking, the thing that we go back to, especially in these moments where we feel the most helpless, to feel the weight of all of this suffering upon our shoulders. That yes, our contemporary words are important. Yes, our contemporary practices are important, but we are a people who are established in history. These words from our sacred literature are not just words. They are our inspiration. They are our hope. They're the thing we hold on to in the worst moments. So while these words may seem, again, only words, it's not that. Every prayer is meaningful. And whether they can hear it in captivity, that they hopefully know, at the very least, in their bones and their kishkas, that the Jewish world is praying for them and for their, God willing, speedy release. Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu, our God and God of our ancestors, You know that the Jewish people are one nation with one heart, and today that heart is broken. O healer of broken hearts, binder of their wounds, says the psalmist, be with our brothers and sisters who have been taken captive, and with the families of the victims. Watch over the hostages, break their bonds, and bring them out from darkness to light. As Isaiah proclaimed, release to the captives, liberation to the imprisoned. Comfort the families of all those murdered. Bring them under the shelter of your wings. Bring complete healing of body and spirit to all of the wounded. Bind up our wounds and grant us healing. Tzur Yisrael v'goalo, rock and redeemer of the people Israel. Bless the state of Israel, the initial manifestation of our redemption. Shield it with your care. Spread over it your shelter of peace. Guide its leaders and advisors with your light and your truth. Grace them with your good counsel. Strengthen the hands of those who defend our holy land. Crown their efforts with victory. Bless the land with peace, its inhabitants with lasting joy. Shomer Yisrael, guardian of Israel, strengthen and bless the defenders of Israel, who stand guard over our land, on the land, in the air, and on the sea. May we see the promise of the psalmist realized. You turn my mourning into dancing, my sackcloth into robes of joy. God protect, preserve, and restore peace and well-being to Israel, your people. And together we say, Amen. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. So I'm going to continue a tradition I began a number of years ago on the Shabbat that precedes Martin Luther King Day. And this actually happens in many synagogues across the country in various kinds of ways. What I decided a number of years ago, though, was rather than speak around King, to hear his words, and in particular to look for sermons that he delivered that are lesser known, to say the least. Harder to find, maybe ones that didn't come across our opportunities for learning or wherever it might come from. Some of you may have heard this, although I suspect probably not. It's not necessarily anything that you haven't heard, but at the same time, to me, hit me really quite profoundly. And this sermon, it's given in his Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta on December 24th, 1967. For those of us maybe less familiar with what that date implies, this is his Christmas Eve speech to his congregation. And the title of the sermon is, it really boils down to this, that all life is interrelated, interconnected. In truth, what it's known as more is the Christmas Sermon on Peace. So while it may be a strange thing in our sanctuary tonight to be mentioning the word Christmas, it doesn't appear much, but it's the framing for this. And I'll say, as I've done in these other instances, you need to go back and read it in its entirety. The King Center has a tremendous number of these sermons available, both in written form and actually in many cases in either an audio file or sometimes even in a video file, so you can hear it from his own mouth, which is the most powerful. But I really didn't go looking for this sermon. It just sort of found me. And I can't read it in its entirety. It's too long for this space, so I will do what I hate to do, which is to cut in certain places. But I am, as much as I can, going to read it as it lies, which we have to remember, again, certain phrases, certain words, certain things may come from a different time period that don't quite ring for us today, but I learned a word that I wasn't familiar with, Baudelarization. Perhaps, I don't know, Judge, if this ever come up for you, but apparently it's a term that is referred to a man named Thomas Baudelaire, who famously edited Shakespeare's works to remove perceived indecency, which, as you can imagine, was not met well. So the idea is that, generally speaking, even if something that was written a long time ago contains a word or a phrase that is, by today's standards, offensive, that one reads it as it lies because it would be disingenuous to make those changes, especially in a room where people may not know what's been changed. So, with all of that said, here are his words. This Christmas season finds us a rather bewildered human race. We have neither peace within nor peace without. Everywhere, paralyzing fears harrow people by day and haunt them by night. Our world is sick with war. Everywhere we turn, we see its ominous possibilities. And yet, my friends, the Christmas hope for peace and good toward all men. The Christmas hope for peace and goodwill toward all men can no longer be dismissed as a kind of pious dream of some utopian. If we don't have a goodwill toward men in this world, we will destroy ourselves by the misuse of our own instruments and our own power. And so if we assume that life is worth living, if we assume that mankind has a right to survive, then we must find an alternative to war, and so let us this morning explore the conditions for peace. Let us this morning think anew on the meaning of that Christmas hope, peace on earth, goodwill toward men. And as we explore these conditions, I would like to suggest that modern man really go all out to study the meaning of nonviolence, its philosophy, and its strategy. It really boils down to this, that all life is interrelated. We are all caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied into a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. We are made to live together because of the interrelated structure of reality. Did you ever stop to think that you can't leave for your job in the morning without being dependent on most of the world? Before you finish eating breakfast in the morning, you've depended on more than half of the world. This is the way our universe is structured. This is its interrelated quality. We aren't going to have peace on earth until we recognize this basic fact of the interrelated structure of all reality. Now, let me say, secondly, that if we are to have peace in the world, men and nations must embrace the nonviolent affirmation that ends and means must cohere. One of the great philosophical debates of history has been over the whole question of means and ends. And there have always been those who argued that the end justifies the means, and that the means really aren't important. The important thing is to get to the end, you see. So if you're seeking to develop a just society, they say, the important thing is to get there, and the means are really unimportant. Any means will do so long as they get you there. They may be violent, they may be untruthful means, they may even be unjust means to a just end. There have been those who have argued this throughout history. But we will never have peace in the world until men have everywhere recognized that ends are not cut off from means, because the means represent the ideal in the making and the end in process. And ultimately, you can't reach good ends through evil means, because the means represent the seed and the end represents the tree. It's one of the strangest things that all the great military geniuses of the world have talked about peace. The conquerors of old who came killing in pursuit of peace, Alexander, Julius Caesar, Charlemagne, and Napoleon, were keen in seeking a peaceful world order. Every time we drop our bombs in North Vietnam, President Johnson talks eloquently about peace. What is the problem? They are talking about peace as a distant goal, as an end we seek. But one day we must come to see that peace is not merely a distant goal we seek, but that it is a means by which we arrive at that goal. We must pursue peaceful ends through peaceful means. All of this is saying that in the final analysis, means and ends must cohere, because the end is pre-existent in the means, and ultimately destructive means cannot bring about constructive ends. In 1963, on a sweltering August afternoon, we stood in Washington, D.C. and talked to the nation about many things. Toward the end of that afternoon, I tried to talk to the nation about a dream that I had had. And I must confess to you today that not long after talking about that dream, I started seeing it turn into a nightmare. I remember the first time I saw the dream turn into a nightmare, just a few weeks after I had talked about it. It was when 4 beautiful, unoffending, innocent Negro girls were murdered in a church in Birmingham, Alabama. I watched that dream turn into a nightmare as I moved through the ghettos of the nation and saw my black brothers and sisters perishing on a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity, and saw the nation doing nothing to grapple with the Negro's problem of poverty. I saw that dream turn into a nightmare as I watched my black brothers and sisters in the midst of anger and understandable outrage, in the midst of their hurt, in the midst of their disappointment, turn to misguided riots to solve that problem. I saw that dream turn into a nightmare as I watched the war in Vietnam escalating, and as I saw so-called military advisors, 16,000 strong, turn into fighting soldiers until today over 500,000 American boys are fighting on Asian soil. Yes, I am personally the victim of deferred dreams, of blasted hopes. But in spite of that, I close today by saying I still have a dream. Because you can't give up in life. If you lose hope, somehow you lose that vitality that keeps life moving. You lose that courage to be, that quality that helps you go on in spite of it all. And so today, I still have a dream. Now, I won't give too much comment to it. I prefer to let the words speak for themselves, but it's a very complicated sermon for a lot of different reasons. And it's particularly complicated right now, as I've spoken about many times, for a person whose general disposition is towards nonviolence. To know that we are in the midst of a war that is being fought bravely by people 18, 19, 20 years old, by reservists who came out from their homes, from their work, a war that was not asked for, a war that was thrust upon us, a war that, as hard as it is for me to say again as a pacifist, a war that is necessary in many ways, and a war that, quite frankly, will be fought whether I or any of us like it or not. In the end, though, King's message is not necessarily about this war or any particular war. King's message is about a larger question, which I think is essential for us to be thinking about and to be asking ourselves about, which is, in the end, every war that's ever been fought lays the groundwork for a next step of some sort. It can go in a number of different directions. It can perpetuate further wars, or it can create a time of peace. Peace is often fleeting. Things often come from, again, not unexpected places, but in unexpected ways, shakes us to our core, causes us, understandably, to return to a place of necessary defense and, quite frankly, the associated violence that comes with it. But what breaks my heart, and I hear it frequently, and I've heard it from lots of people, in a position to determine the outcomes in the future, and those that are simply speaking, that conversations about what happens after, conversations about the future, conversations about lasting peace, are things that are put on a shelf for after the war is won. For the soldiers, that's a reality. I don't expect soldiers to be thinking about peace tomorrow or the next day or the year after that. I don't expect their leaders necessarily within the military to be thinking along those lines. I do, however, expect that those who are in power, those who support from afar, those who support from within, countries around the world, our own people, do not think about peace as the end goal. Do not understand that that must be the end goal. Is to do disservice, frankly, to this Torah that we so desperately love and care for and hold up as our guidepost. There is violence in the Torah as there is violence in life. There are wars in the Torah as there is war today, and there very likely will be in the future. But we find ourselves on a treadmill going nowhere if we cannot at least open our minds to the possibility of what Dr. King was talking about in this moment. Again, merely months after his I Have a Dream speech, nearly months after the March on Washington, the realization that a dream was only that if you cannot manifest it. And in the end, his message here, whether we adhere to his principles of nonviolence or not, is that we have work to do. We have thinking to do, deep kinds of thinking. It may not be possible now while the bullets are flying, but they will stop. Every war that has ever been fought eventually comes to an end. The question is what happens right after. And if we think that the outcome will be different 10 years, 15 years, 20 years down the road, without a concerted effort, without a real commitment to the concept and to the application of the idea of peace, then I am afraid, truly, that I will be standing here 20 years from now giving the same sermon. And that a whole nother generation of young people will be fighting another war. King was many things. Complicated man, brilliant orator, unshakable leader. But he was also an honest person, a vulnerable person, a person who spoke from the pulpit to his community numerous times, in which he talked about that which disappointed him, that which scared him, that which inspired him. To me, it's not a small thing to make space in a Friday night Shabbat service to deliver a sermon of some sort from a preacher from a different religion, from a different race, from a totally different world. And I'm not the only one tonight, I guarantee you, who is doing something similar. A lot of times, our greatest leaders of history, we put them into a museum. We visit them on occasion. We think about them only when it's convenient. I think now especially, right now especially, we need to let some of this sit with us. It may not change any of our perspectives, may not change our beliefs, may not change the outcome in any real fashion. But to me, I've spent most of the day since I read this thinking very deeply, questioning myself, questioning, quite frankly, the people that I look to, that I believe in, to the ideas that I believe in, and asking myself, what is going to change this paradigm? What is going to change what feels like an unending reality? I don't have an answer, but I have an answer. And I think that he's given it to us here. And that is to understand that we are deeply interconnected, deeply related to one another, in ways we know and in ways we don't. And right now the world is shaking. We need desperately to choose new paths, different ways, inspire ourselves, inspire others, inspire the next generation, push ourselves to be more, to be better. I know right now this isn't the conversation most people want to have, and I get that. And as I said, nothing I've said tonight, nothing that anybody will say is going to change the reality on the ground in Israel or in Gaza. And I pray each and every day for the protection of those soldiers, again, who are fighting for things that they truly believe in, to protect the people that they love. And I hope, more than anything in the world, that that situation will not go on much longer, and that new possibilities, things that we couldn't even have conceived of, may arise from the ashes of this horrible moment in time. I don't know the way forward, but I believe that Dr. King, all these years later, in this small but beautiful temple here on the east end of Long Island, his words speak to us across the veil, to our hearts. I thank you for giving me the opportunity to share his words, his inspiration, and may his memory be for a blessing. Shabbat shalom. We'll turn back to our prayer books, to our Sidurim, to page 586. I'll invite us to rise in body or spirit for Aleinu, again beginning at the very bottom of page 586. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגור עלינו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. Page 591. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד. Now ask those in mourning, those observing yahrzeit, to please remain standing. Everyone else may be seated at this time. We think first of those who've passed in our community in recent months: Isabel Becker, Bert Bitterman, Julian Busgang, Morty Schwatsky, Beverly Deshevsky, Deborah Fogarty, Jerry Goldsmith, Dr. Sam Gould, Rita Hertzfeld, Sean Leibowitz, Samuel Moskowitz, Jeffrey Nagelberg, Barbara Strasser, Fania Verrett, and David Weinstein. We also marked the yard sites that occurred during the last week for Gladys Abraham, York Arake, Lori Beldany, Daniel Bernstein, Leon Blaufarb, Minnie Bryant, Nancy Coplin, Donald Doctorow, Ernst Eckstein, Jay Fagan, Paul Goldman, Rose Goodstadt, Victor Hellman, Kurt Ivers, Harry Charles Karp, Max Katz, Hy Cornfield, Mortimer Lamchick, Louis Lehner, Sidney Melankoff, Debbie Newmark, Rebecca Nevins, Kate Okun, Samuel Okun, Edna Pastor, Oscar Person, Jack Rivkin, Saul Rubin, Lillian Schwartz, Lucille Siegel, Rebecca Steinberg, Beverly Susser, Allison Tishman, Bert Wartell, and Harold Weisselberg. In addition to those names that I just read, if anyone else is saying Kaddish for anyone that didn't mention. And now I'll invite those that it's your tradition to rise. You're welcome to do so. Invite the mourners to join with me. And of course, in addition to those names that we've read out loud, we remember all of those lives that have been taken in Israel. And we pray again for their families as well. Page 598, the mourners may join with me, top of the page. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, be'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shemei rabbah mevarach la'alam u'li'almei almaya, v'yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yit'aleh v'yitalal shemei d'kudsha berichu. Leila min kol birchata v'shirata, tush bechata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shalama rabba min shemaya, b'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu yaseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Zichronam livracha, may every one of their memories be for a blessing. Please be seated. Shabbat shalom, everyone. So, first I just want to say a thank you. I said it last week online, but I want to say it again. Thank you for the understanding that last Shabbat was obviously very different. Only time it ever happened in the 9.5 years I've been here. But be thankful that I did not bring whatever was in my household into this space because it was not a fun few weeks for the Geffen household. But hopefully everyone is starting to feel better. Hopefully all you are feeling better. And reminder this time of year in particular, do be careful. A lot of things sort of passing around as it are. And I know that a lot of our people are at home tonight largely because they are not feeling well. So we hope for a general healing for a lot of different reasons. So a few announcements. Please join us tomorrow morning for services at 10 o'clock. You can join us here. I'd love it if you join us here at the temple. And if not, certainly can join us online or on Zoom as well. Torah study tomorrow will also be at 12 o'clock, hybrid, so you could join us here at the temple or online as well. Reminder that our weekly morning minyan on Sundays at 9:30 continue. This again is in response to the war in Israel to give another opportunity for our community to pray together. We're grateful to Bentzi Tepper and to Leah Oppenheimer who have been leading that charge. That is Zoom only at this point in time, so that's Sundays at 9:30. Just make sure that you register. If you don't know how to do that, please contact the office and we'll help. Speaking of the office will be closed this Monday in observance of Martin Luther King federal holiday. And of course, a reminder that means everything on Mondays that normally happen are not happening. A reminder, though, that this week you can join Rabbi Alan Levin for his virtual listening circle. Again, this really largely in response to the war as an opportunity for people to just simply share how they are feeling, not with any intention to answer or solve any particular problems, but just as an opportunity to share. So that, again, will be 5:30 this Tuesday on January 16th, and then again last Tuesday of the month. Also a reminder to please register for our virtual program with the ADL entitled Anti-Semitism in Your Neighborhood, which will be led by David White, who is our regional director of the ADL. That's Thursday, January 18th at 7 o'clock. Please again make sure that you register for that. That program, unless I'm not, could be wrong, I think is for members only, but okay. So Ann says, and Ann is on our committee, leading our committee, so Ann knows the answer. But if you're interested, again, please register and make sure in advance for the program on Thursday at 7 o'clock. So those are all of the announcements that I have in front of me. And of course, to join us next door when we're done with our service for our Oneg Shabbat. But again, I just want to wish everyone a Shabbat Shalom, and thank you all for being here, and for those that are watching us at home as well. Before we do Kiddush, we'll close on page 645. 645, all the way at the end of our Siddur, which is a oft-quoted piece from Isaiah, one that King himself certainly quoted on more than a few occasions. One of the things I think that that I appreciate more and more as I go further and further into the rabbinate is that, of course, King was known as many different things, many different peoples, but he began his life really as the son of a preacher, as a preacher himself. He stood in places probably not much bigger than this, especially in the beginning of his career, and he spoke and he taught, and he often, very often, quoted from our Torah, right, from the Old Testament, from the Tanakh, from the prophets, from texts that are familiar to us. He did so brilliantly, though, that a lot of the time people didn't know that that's what was happening. They assumed necessarily that it was his words. And oftentimes they were. But many times his words were built off of words that he learned as a child, right? That his father taught him when he sat down to study the sacred texts of our collective traditions. So this verse from Isaiah, while it seems, again, so far off, as he said, as a distant idea, something in the future, something to pray for, but not for our time, we have to do what he says in his sermon and try to bring this idea into the present. Okay, make it something that doesn't feel fanciful, that doesn't make it feel a part of someone else's story, but our own. Lo yisa goy el goy cherev, velo yilmedu od milchama. That someday, may it be soon, nation shall not take up sword against nation, and they shall never again study war. Lo yisa goy el goy cherev, lo yilmedu od milchama. Lo yisa goy el goy cherev, lo yilmedu od milchama. Lo yisa goy el goy cherev, lo yilmedu od milchama. Lo yisa goy el goy cherev, lo yilmedu od milchama. Lo yisa goy el goy cherev, lo yilmedu od milchama. Lo yisa goy el goy cherev, lo yilmedu od milchama. Let us now to rise for Kiddush on page 123. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu b'shabbat kodsho b'ahava uvratzon inchilanu zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit ki hu yom techila lemikrae kodesh zecher letziat Mitzrayim ki banu v'chata ve'otanu kidashta mikol hamim ve'shabbat kodshecha be'ahava uvratzon inchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat. Amen. L'chaim. To life. And can I ask one more favor of you? Just, I feel fine, but the household's still not so great. Would you mind just, with the challah, I don't want to put my hands on anything. I'll do the blessing if you just, do the eating piece. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Okay, thank you, Ann. Always jumping in to help. Shabbat shalom, everybody. Please come next door. You can all have your own challah that I haven't touched.
Hey, Josie. Thank you very much. I don't know how it is that we went all those years without realizing that this is the perfect place for
I know, right?
it. No, slow learners, I guess. I don't know. I don't know.